So we've been talking about measuring progress and adjusting. We've been talking about this journey that schools are on, where they've launched some kind of innovation, they've put it into practice, they've got teachers who are experimenting in classrooms, they're sharing ideas with others, their administrators providing support, and then one of the central challenges is figuring out whether or not what we're doing is working. How do we go from launching an innovation to looking really closely about whether or not it's having the effects on student learning we want it to have? And if it's not, how do we make shifts in the program, make shifts in the practices, and adjust to improve that? Right. Peter, what kinds of things have you seen in schools where teams come together to do that really successfully?
Well, as we said before, you know, talk is cheap, as they say. And in many ways, the real measure of how serious you are is how serious you are about assessing. You know, anybody can try something. The question is, can you adjust it? You know, the old line in writing, you know, writing is important, but editing is crucial. So it is that mindset that you won't get it right, and if you're really serious, you're going to try everything you can to judge what's working, what's not working, and how do we adjust. And then I think the other thing we began to touch on before was that it's also an emotional matter. So the one other thing that's probably useful to kind of underscore here is because of the emotional challenges of being really committed to assessing, you know, like, well, it really didn't work here. You can't do it by yourself. You really need partners. I think that's something that's a little bit difficult sometimes, partly because teaching has a history of being a very individualistic profession. But secondly, a lot of times the innovative spirit is, I'm going to do this. I'm really excited about this. And then you tend not to realize that, well, in 6 months, your excitement is actually going to be gone. You're going to be frustrated, disappointed, and angry at somebody. Then the question is, who do you have as a partner?
Right, to help support that. So I think schools often do a good job of creating teams that are called things like data teams, or when they're technology projects, they tend to be technology committees or things like that. And these can be some core groups that get together with different kinds of expertise. So it's good to have folks who have a teacher perspective and administrator perspective, some people maybe who have some particular technical skills about, you know, gathering survey data, or gathering test score data, or gathering data from looking at student work, and sort of putting those pieces together. The thing I love about your editing metaphor is I think that's exactly what we ask students to do with their work. We ask them to go and try some things, and when they're not working, not to just throw them out or give up, but to say, all right, so what's working here, what's not? That's one of our main roles as educators, is to give people feedback. And so, you know, one of the ways, I mean, students always learn more from who we are than what we tell them. And if we can show them, hey, look, when we try to improve our practice, we get together with other folks, we get feedback, we learn from our mistakes, we learn from our successes, and we move forward. That seems like a way to take some of the emotional friction of this process and cast it in a really positive sort of teaching light.
Right. Yeah, I like the data team example. The problem is that, first off, you know, how do you compose a data team? You know, obviously you're going to say, well, we need something from this perspective, this perspective, this perspective. That's fine. But it doesn't mean we'll actually trust each other. And, you know, that's where the rubber meets the road here. You know, do I have all my emotional kind of armor on to protect and cover up what didn't work, or explain what wasn't really we just didn't get implemented right. We're already corrected. We know what to do. Do I have that kind of defensiveness, which is so easy to understand in this territory? Or I go, no, you're right, it didn't really work, and I'm really not sure what to do. So, you know, the underpinning of all this is a word that a lot of times professionals don't like to use, and it's the word vulnerability. And I think how we create a space, a setting, a set of relationships that allows people to be genuinely vulnerable. I'll never forget a conversation with two teachers. We actually filmed this, and it was just one of the best things we ever filmed. There was one lady who'd been engaged in really deep pedagogical innovation for a decade, another for 2 years. And the lady who'd been at it for 2 years was really sharing how hard it had been for her. You know, like taking her chairs in her classroom out of a straight line was like worse than having teeth pulled. I mean, she just couldn't believe she could do it. And, you know, the room was going to really look different, and they were going to be talking to each other. They wouldn't just be looking at her. And it was just lovely to watch the two of them talking. And the lady who'd been at it less was just really kind of sharing her journey. And of course, she'd gotten beyond that. So there's this triumph of the non-straight row chairs. It was touching. It meant so much to her that she'd been able to get across that emotional chasm. And the lady who was the veteran was going, yep, I know what you mean. I went through her own version of it. And then she said something which I'll never forget. She said, you know, we're really inviting our students to be truly vulnerable. Because if you can't be vulnerable, you can't learn.
Yep.
Are we prepared as teachers to go on that same journey?
That same kind of
So that's the kind of emotional resonance that has to be held, in my experience, collectively, not just individually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Good. Well, hopefully that gives some good ideas for our students in this class to move forward with and think about their own vulnerability and their own practice with their colleagues.